So hello, Niels.
Hi, Pete.
Good to see you. So Niels Radtke is a very good friend of mine, and we've become real spiritual brothers over the last year, I would say, particularly. And I wanted to interview Niels because he's quite an unusual pioneering spiritual aspirant. And what impresses me about Niels is that he very courageously gave up his life in Belgium some years ago, and really surrendered himself to the call of the heart. And he's why I say he's an unusual and pioneering aspirant is that he's gone very deeply into the Indian yogic traditions. He's an adept Hatha yogi, and he's also studied some of the more subtle spiritual practices in the Indian yogic traditions in Vedanta. He's also studied quite deeply Ayurveda. So he really imbibed a lot of the wisdom from India. And then in more recent years, he found himself called to go and explore the spiritual wisdom of the South, of particularly South America, and the whole plant medicine shamanic tradition. And he's been in Peru pretty much the last couple of years, I think. And Niels has shared with me some of his adventures with various plant medicines. And what's particularly interesting is that he's not only taken various plant medicines in a ceremonial context, but he's now actually training to be a shaman himself with a Curandero in Peru, which I'm sure he'll tell us about. And as part of that training, he's doing some very, let's say, challenging and soul expanding journeys, which are called dietas in that tradition, which involve long periods of fasting in the jungle and not really eating very much at all, except whatever plant medicine you are doing the dieta with. So, yeah, I'd like to begin, Niels, if you can just share a bit about how do you see the interrelationship between these two streams of wisdom that you've dived very deeply into, from the Indian East and the indigenous plant medicine culture there in Peru?
Yeah, so for me, it started out, as you say, like I left my lifestyle and my life in Belgium. Yeah, I was having, the usual, running after your projects and working hard, and I was working in fashion and lifestyle and arts, and until the Ayurveda pulled me out of it to start with. So I first started out being called quit everything, quit all the toxic lifestyle, and being pulled in the Ayurvedic lifestyle to actually, find your place again as an individual within the 5 elements and the creation of the universe. A bit like when a duck is lost in the desert, you put it back on the lake, and it's like, here's the right place for you to swim. And that's basically what Ayurveda does. And so that was kind of the brutal ripping up, like pulling me out of this whole urban toxic lifestyle. And yeah, at the same time, I was getting called by all kind of yogic cleansing and strengthening, stabilizing practices called Hatha yoga. And of course, like in the beginning, I was only confronted with it in Belgian yoga studios, and there was like this more modern approach to it, which is a more like a physical culture approach to it, which at that time was fine for me because it was part of a purification. but then I got like more interested in the pre-modern practices. Like, where does this come from? Why did they do this? Who were those yogis? Getting that really strong call of self-transcendence, and not just, physical practice or self-improvement and, feeling fit and yeah, more better in my body, but actually, going for true self-transcendence. So I went to India and deepened studies there with the, within the Ayurveda, and yeah, getting to know what actually the real Hatha yoga practice is, and which is like a medieval practice, 11th century, 15th century, in which people, mostly ascetics, would be in small groups, live in separation, and have these four steps from asana, pranayama, mudras being like bodily seals in which you compress prana and up going and down, prana up, like prana and apana together, like in a pressure cooker, and then the only way it can go is through the central nervous system and pop through the chakras and go over to the crown chakra and then go into the meditation, then meditation arises. So these people were going in for the kill. They weren't going in for the yoga, for the ego kill, egoic kill, in order to transcend into the true being. And Hatha means forceful, like Hatha yoga means like yoga through force, in a forceful way, breaking through, like popping through the limitation, like controlling the body, controlling the mind, controlling the body-mind complex, and then popping through it. That's what Hatha yoga is. And then, of course, it developed into different styles and types through the British occupation, almost like 1,000 years later, and then became completely something else through Western physical culture, and then became the yoga we know what it is today, which is way more asana focused, and everything subordinate to it, whereas before asana was basically only the preparation. As long as when the moment you can sit in the lotus pose for as long as you want, then you're done with the asana. Because that means that that your crystal, that your shape is clean, strong, open, and then the body is no longer an obstacle. You can forget about it. It's always in place, and then you start working on the on the breath and working on the mental control, because you control breath, you control mind, and then you have body and mind, and then you go into the seals and then jump over. So that was for me a very important understanding that was what these people were doing, and that was Hatha yoga was about. So yoga through the postural yoga, and which is also the basis of any postural yoga that has come later on, but that has been there are many yogas, right? There's yoga through bhakti, yoga through karma, yoga through jnana, yoga through mantra. It's all the attaining of the state of yogas through something. Yeah. And then the thing is, though, is that there is a very strong seeking aspect in it, because people would, if you do this, then you obtain that. And so when I was in India, I started to read and be confronted with non-duality and the teachings of non-duality, Adi Shankara and Swami Chinmayananda and all this. So these people who were making commentaries on, on Veda, Gita, Upanishad, Brahma Sutras, and where I started to understand that reality itself, or let's say God itself alone is real, all the rest appears to be real. And it is just a matter of awakening and discrimination, and which would be kind of an almost opposite way of the yogic or the Hatha yogic way, which they would go from, okay, but I'm in this state, how can I transcend? And through all these practices, and whereas the non-duality would say, like, only God is real.
Yeah, so it's like up and out versus you're already here.
Yeah, exactly. Even though, I mean, there are a lot of, also techniques and scriptures and ways of understanding that the deep reality of the divine light. But it is way less a seeking method than would be the Hatha yogic way. But nevertheless, you still remain living in a physical body, and so for me, it has been, the steps have been from Ayurveda, from the most gross being like, the body mind complex and with the doshas and how to balance that in order to have like a long disease-free life. So also we have like more time for any awakening. And that's also why yogis, for example, in the older times, they would call in an Ayurvedic doctor, but not so much. Like they're not like only for some certain like healings, because they wanted to have the long lifespan in order to have like more time to transcend. So it goes back, so the way it goes from this Ayurvedic approach to this Hatha yogic approach in where you kind of create this very strong, clean, light body-mind complex, and then through non-dual understanding transcend it, but still have a strong, healthy, clean body-mind complex.
Right.
Because you keep, I mean, before enlightenment chop wood, after enlightenment chop wood, so you need to have a healthy body to chop wood.
Right. And so when you obviously went quite deeply into this, and was there a reason why you began to be interested and attracted to the indigenous tradition and the plant medicines? Or I'm just interested in what was that shift in your path, and how did that come about?
Well, I was in Swami Chinmayananda ashram. So Swami Chinmayananda is one of the big reformers of Vedanta in India for the last century. And so I was in his ashram, his Samadhi ashram, so where his shrine, Samadhi shrine is. I was there studying and doing practice between 6 to 12 hours per day in the forests around the ashram. Starting at 3:30 in the morning and being with the monks. And at some point, even though I had like extremely strong awakenings, Kundalini awakenings through these very strong Hatha yogic practices, at some point, plants started knocking on my door. Like, Niels, you have to come to Peru. I'm like, huh? Why? Like, this is it. Like, what I'm doing is it. And they're like, no, you got to come over.
So obviously then you'd heard of ayahuasca, or
yeah, I heard of it, but for me it was always this thing like I would never do it because I would be full yogi who would like also see that as an obstacle, and yeah, you would not need plants for any awakening. You would only use plants eventually for creating cities. As they would like take some herbs or some plants, or also in Ayurveda, there's a lot of plants and a lot of plant medicine, but it's a completely different way of using plant as medicine than in the indigenous tribes in South America. So I was like, I was a bit like, no, I'm not coming. And that was a struggle for quite a while because I was happy with the practice. And the awakening that was happening, but of course, little did I know once I went on further in the journey, when because I didn't go right away. First I went to Indonesia, and then from Indonesia I went to Portugal, and that's when I met you and everything you were doing there. And then I also met all the teachings of Adida Samraj, and so I didn't like go right away to the plants, but they kept on like maybe once a week they would come, like
they were calling.
Niels, come. over. And it's funny because they do that once in a while, and like now I learned to pick up the call right away. Like so and so yeah, so I went to anyway, so at a certain point I went to Peru. I went to Peru via Mexico, Guatemala, and then Peru. And then in Mexico, I asked around, like, hey, do you know any good place, any shaman, any place where to do a dieta? And so they told me this person in Picuroyaco, which is near Iquitos in the Amazon jungle. And this was the first time I would also be drinking ayahuasca, and it was not the first time like a whole month of dieta with bobinsana, which is one of the master plants you can diet. And so I will quickly explain what a dieta is, maybe.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So dieta is, I mean, it means diet, but it doesn't mean that you start like it's not mean you have like if you do a diet to lose weight. It's basically you isolate yourself. It's pretty close to what actually Hatha yogis would do. Hatha yogis would isolate themselves in a hut, far away from everyone, far away from any disturbance. Focus on their practice and be guided by a master. And the dieta is actually pretty much the same. So you go in a hut, of course you're followed by and guided by a master, a maestro who has dominion or mastery of the whole process. And so basically through the process of fasting, not eating any salt, not eating any spices, not any fruit, any sugars, any stimulant.
What do you eat then? Do you actually eat on the dieta at all?
Well, yeah, I mean, with time you start to eat less and less. Like my last dieta was a month and a half, and I didn't eat for 23 days, only drank water. Wow. So, and of course the plant extract that I've been dieting. So what happens is that you drink, like, basically through like making your body so clean and subtle that when you drink the plant extract, it has nothing to do with an ayahuasca. So it's not any psychoactive medicine. It is basically the essence. It's like, it's like an extract of that plant. And through the drinking of the essence, the plant spirit, little by little, reveals itself and connects with you and bonds with you. And that bonding process can be very strong and very intense and very intimate. So people diet for two reasons. So you can do a diet, for example, you have any physical or emotional problems, heartbroken, grief, abuse, rape, liver, arthritis, whatever. So you can like diet with a plant in order to heal that. Or you diet with a plant in order when you want to become a curandero yourself. When you want to become a curandero yourself, then you create a whole different level of alliance with the plant you're dieting. So for example, because that when the curandero does his healing work on the patient, it is actually the plant spirit that he has been dieting with and the plant spirit that agreed to be his servant or ally. Then only then can you call upon the plants you've been dieting with, call them in, and they actually come through you and do the work on the patient through you within an ayahuasca ceremony, for example. So that's why, for example, before when the curandero would heal somebody, only the curandero would be drinking the ayahuasca, because ayahuasca, he would use it, as an interface. So if you want to go deep sea diving, you wear goggles, and with those goggles you can look around. Ayahuasca is that goggle, or ayahuasca is that stethoscope. And then so whatever you see, whatever happens, is not so much particularly of the ayahuasca, but the ayahuasca can basically opens up that spirit world, that dimension, that frequency within you can navigate and diagnose the patient and exactly see what is going on. And then through the songs, which are connected to the different plant spirits you have been dieting with, you call them in and they come and do the healing work, pull out or work on whatever what needs to be done on the patient.
Amazing.
So yeah, it is spectacular. It's spectacular. And also, like in the older days, like only the shaman would drink ayahuasca, because he would be the one needing to see. He's a doctor. So he's basically, he's putting his doctor gear on. It's just ayahuasca, and then if it would be today in in an operation room, it would be a totally different thing. Somebody would put on a mask and would like use a scalpel and use all these things. It's the same technology, just very different, but as real and as powerful.
Yeah.
So the Dieta technology is basically and it is fascinating the alliance you can get with those spirits, because the spirits are very ancient and they're very strong, and I mean they make you suffer. You have to earn it. But when they bond, it's something which you can have like a relationship with a dog or with a cat or with a horse, but when a plant comes, it's on a completely different realm.
When you say they make you work for it or they make you suffer, can you say a little bit more?
Yeah, because I mean you have to do all these restrictions, and it really doesn't work without those restrictions. So there's also, for example, there's of course no sex. There is no
no distraction whatsoever.
Yeah. And also like food wise, I mean, my maestro always says, the secret of the diet lies in the fasting. So the stronger and the more committed you fast, the deeper the connection with the plant is, and the more the plant reveals and the more the plant gives you either knowledge, protection, strength, insight, and of course healing, because of course even if you like do the dietas as a curandero apprentice, you also have your healing to do. You need to be as clean as possible. So you have to become because you can only heal insofar that you're healed yourself, or you can only so if you carry any darker traumatic energies or bad intentions, you won't be a proper curandero.
Yeah.
So you
won't be a pure vehicle.
Yeah, and that's where that's where actually all the yogic practices and the Ayurvedic practices come in extremely handy, because through the Ayurveda you have a clean lifestyle, like not only nutrition but also energetically. You are pretty, you balance yourself, and then through the yogic practices you also work through quite some energetic blockages. You have a strong, clean body, and through the Vedanta, you work through quite some vasanas. So you at least also what a vasana is. What those imprints are. That these things need to be seen, transcended, and burned. And
so a vasana being these ego patterns, basically.
Yeah. And that's what you learn that's in my path. That's I was already aware from about those patterns or vasanas through Vedanta, and having a very clean, strong, flexible body-mind complex, also to the Hatha yoga practices, which are can be very intense. And I remember when my maestro, because so I did that first dieta, but then after that I started with another maestro, did that apprenticeship. And when we did the first one-to-one ceremony, he looked at me, because I asked him, like, can you see before we start what's going on? And when we came out of it, he said, like, you have done many diets, And even though I had only done one diet, but you know, because it's like your plant connection is so strong and clear and pure. That happened through those years of Hatha
practice.
Yogic sadhana, you know, of purification. So then, and that's when I started to question, how can I integrate all these bodies of knowledge, or how all these practices into one coherent, integral way, in order to make it exponentially stronger.
And that's what you're pioneering with this project that you're calling Yoga.
Yeah. So when I did a diet with Noyarao, she's the tree. She's, you know, they call her the queen of the jungle or the president of the jungle. So she is spiritually the highest tree. She's a straight connection to God, straight connection to divine. I mean, ultimately everything arises from divine and is divine, but she is within, you know, the plant medicine culture, the highest frequency doorway or gateway to that divine consciousness, to reality consciousness, to pure light. She's pure light. So when you diet her, there is this pure descending of conscious light and knowledge within your body mind system, and within your awareness, and you become her. And she just overflows everything. She just outshines everything. And also all your shadows, and she gives you also that complete trust and strength to basically, you know, have this big torch in your hand and then start to shine around everything that might be hidden somewhere, and shine and look and see, and then look it in the face, look it in the eye, and she gives that light in order for you to transcend it. I mean, those plants are like true gurus. They're fully awakened, spiritual, egoless beings that help to develop us, you know, as much as you know, as waking up, as growing up.
Yeah. And what was the name of that plant medicine again?
Her name is Noyarao.
Noyarao. So you'd obviously done an enormous amount of purification and practice before you did the dieta with this medicine. Could you say a bit about how she opened you up further? What was the impact of that dieta?
I remember one day, because I hadn't eaten for weeks, and I remember one day sitting in my hut. I mainly live naked in my hut, and either, like, you know, we use pipes, so we get pipes. So this, for example, is Noyarao, the pipe made of Noyarao wood. So we use those pipes also because the tobacco is one of the master plants which for cleansing and protection. So you cleanse, and you smoke your pipe. You don't inhale, just you sopla, and using the pipe of the same wood makes it also possible that when you're out of dieta, you can always reconnect with the spirit of the tree through supplying yourself daily with, and it's so basically you can reconnect in that prayer with the spirit. And I remember sitting in my tambo, supplying, and I was like feeling just like completely, I was smelling Noyarao because I didn't eat anything else, and Master gave me so much of it to drink. That I was like, I felt as strong as a bodybuilder. I was just sitting there. I was like, wow, and then this armor of light, like armor pieces of light, started like self-luminous, started to like come into me, my back, or everywhere, and just like fuse with my whole being, like, and just pouring out conscious light and knowledge and pure non-dual transcendence and clarity. And she gave me the complete, like, very clear vision on how to integrate Ayurveda, pre-modern Hatha yoga, Veda Vedanta, and plant medicine into one interwoven, multifaceted healing practice.
I see. So it was really on that dieta that
with Noya Rao, yeah, and then she also gave
integration, this whole possibility of integrating these different streams of wisdom came together.
Yeah, I just saw it. I just saw it multidimensionally how it would fit together. But because it's not so much about like mixing it together, like, oh, doing some yoga or some asana and then doing some healthy food and doing some this. No, it is like really integral, like include and transcend, and include and transcend, like you know, like Ayurveda would be included in Hatha yoga, then that would be included and transcended into the next, and then with the Veda included it. And so it is like a whole different seeing than, let's say, you know, like a pluralistic way of like, oh, let's mix this and do this, and then, and so, and then she also gave me the name Yoga Rao, and yoga being the science of consciousness, and Rao is a Shipibo word that means medicine, but also like this, the technology of master plant spirits.
Interesting.
And so you have like different trees that are called Rao. You have Niue Rao, you have Noya Rao, Ayunantin Rao, which is like a small little plant, which is also called Marusa. And so yeah, she gave me like that full understanding, energetic understanding of how this can work together in an integral way. And that's when I started to work on this project, and also offering it in that order, going from Ayurveda, and then, you know, pre-modern Hatha yoga, and then to Vedanta, and then only plants, because I strongly believe, even though it's my past I went through, but I also strongly believe is that there's a lot of people who drinking ayahuasca, doing plant medicine, are very much attached to any experience,
right,
any much attached to whatever they see within the ceremony, and then they go, oh, what did you see, and what did you see, and they forget fear, they forget where is this arising in, or who is aware of this. And so they get very much attached to any stories and a lot of, you know,
all the subtle phenomena.
Yeah, and also like, you know, how do you call that? Superstition, and, you know, like, you know, like a whole lot of things that come around that, and very like ritual based, and so I believe it's very important to first wake up as your true condition, knowing that you are, you know, consciousness itself, from which everything arises, and maybe things appear to be separate, and not going from a contracted seeker, and then being attached within the ayahuasca experience, and seeking for any ways out, because otherwise it just becomes another seeking method, which is, I think, which has to be avoided, and especially if you're training to become a curandero, because when you become a curandero, you want to be an enlightened curandero. So you want to be an awakened curandero. You want to, you know your true condition, and then from that knowledge of pure light being, using those powers and those energies, you know, and then being able to fuse them together, and then, you know, bring them out as, you know, as a laser beam of healing potential towards your patient. Without going into any, you know, greediness, or so many shamans, you know, they go into all kinds of financial abuse or sexual abuse, and there's there's also a lot of black magic in that area, because people are not awakened. They see it as a means of power, and especially in the jungle, everything is about power, because, you know, that's what jungle is. So it's very grounded, it's very earthy, it's very like the law of the jungle, and of the strongest, you know. So I believe that in a contemporary times of, you know, of integral growth, it's a beautiful moment in where you can place that in a different context than just pure I mean, not all curanderos are like that, of course, but they're doctors, and a lot of doctors, they want to have a big car, they want to have a big watch, they want to have a big house. So they're very material people. It doesn't mean they're bad doctors, but they're not looking for any spiritual awakening. So they are, they're just in their material world healing people. But a lot of them, of course, fall in the trap of greediness and power. So that's, for me, why Yoga Rao, in that process, plant medicine would come at a later stage after.
As it did in your own journey.
After an awakening of consciousness. Only then, especially especially when you want to become, if you want to become for that healing, as a healer, right, as a curandero. Because that being said, of course, these plants can also be used within the healing, and that doesn't, for example, Noyarao is like pure consciousness. So basically, it's a plant people diet when they have done other types of diets that would be more like cleaning out lower vibrations or early life stage traumatic events. In order to reach the capacity that Noyarao can teach you. So, for example, people would use Marusa, or people would diet Bobinsana or Triachaki, and these plants, they work together with Noyarao. I mean, she's the president, but they work complementary. But for example, Bobinsana is like a bush, which can become like a tree. It can become pretty big, and has these like pink white flowers, like eyelashes, like little fluffy. And people diet her when they have like sadness and grief and a closed heart, and want to release that, want to open, I want to be more open in the heart center. And those can come from all kinds of traumatic or growing up, early stage life happenings, that people have a closed heart, and so those plants have the incredible ability to come and help you solve that. And but like on a very subtle energetical level, and that's why they're called medicine, right? They're true. That's why it's called plant medicine, because they are medicine not only for the psychophysical, but also for all the subtle realms of your body, mind, and beyond. And they teach you love. Like Bobinsana is pure Krishna. That's pure love. She's like pure heart opening grief. Like I died in Bobinsana after my mom died, for example. So I had this thing when my mom died. It was like, yeah, okay, bye. And I was like, why am I so brutal? Like, why am I just like, yeah, okay, bye? It was like, and it's like, okay, this is not okay.
Everything that arises ceases and just impermanent and okay.
Yeah, but and also like I felt that there was a resentment.
Right?
There was a resentment. And so after she died, I went back to the jungle, and I knew I had to die at Bobinsana for that grief. And then during that dieta, I understood what the resentment was. Because then at some point I was like, oh, and then I was like, because then I was like, oh, I got my mom back for myself. And then I was like, yeah, but because she's not with my dad anymore. And then also because my mom used to go on tour as a musician, and she would leave me alone when I was a kid. And so I was like, yeah, okay, bye anyway, because you already, abandoned me before. So, okay, bye anyway, like,
I see. Right.
Right. And then I saw this whole triangle between me, my mom, and my dad making music together, leaving me. And then that whole thing that I had in life when I had girlfriends, being always, afraid that some other guy would come in, steal my girlfriend. And that's where I started to see, oh my God, like how this, how these patterns work, and how these plants can actually come in there and show that to you, and actually heal that, right?
Yeah.
So it can be like really specific.
Yeah.
So those visions you get and the insights you get are like very clear on your mechanisms of your unconscious mechanisms, and they come for to heal that particular thing.
Right.
So for example, Bobinsana is pretty much for everything that's like heart related. Marusa as well. Marusa, what they call her like a whole hospital. So they use her in many different situations, but mainly also, for example, for long-term female reproductive organ problems, for example. But again, Marusa is like, she's like a small little bush, like some thin leaves and some small white little flowers. Doesn't look like a very impressive plant, like like Chuyachaki, for example, or others. But she has the ability to heal also like heartbreaks, problems with self-esteem, problems with abandonment. Yeah, so a lot of like emotionally linked, mother related first stage or early stage life, traumatic decisions you make in your head, like, oh well, if my mom doesn't like me, then nobody will like me, or if my mom abandons me, everybody abandons me. And it, so those
these deep pre-conscious patternings that come from early life.
Yeah, and so they go in there and bring that up to a level. Then there's this other tree I also dieted, is Chuyachaki, and he's like a masculine tree. He's like the guardian of the jungle.
This is the one you were telling me all about recently in the last.
Yeah.
I particularly wanted to hear more about this because, as you know, the theme of this interview series that I'm starting now is mainly going to be on men's development and men's liberation.
Yeah.
And the Awaken Life Men's Collective, we're making a documentary all about this, sharing our discoveries and experience over about 13 years now. And so I was very interested to hear about more about your experience with this Chuyachaki. Yeah, because most ayahuasca is definitely a feminine presence. Which I've explored a number of times myself, and it seems like many of these plant medicines, they have, you could say, more of a feminine texture, in the way they work with people and open up the heart, as you were just saying. But I was really curious to hear that you went through a deep dieta with a masculine plant spirit. And so tell us about the impact that had on you.
So Chuyachaki, which, the funny thing about plants is that they call you, right? So as I said earlier, they would call me in Himalayas, and it would be like, nah. I'm like, I'm doing pranayama. That's enough. But then later on, I started to recognize, like also when Noya Rao called me the first time, she called me 3 times. And then the third time, she just really took me by the neck and said, like, now you get over here pronto. Okay. And I was like, all right, I'll be there next week, and I went. And so, and pretty much once you have dieted, like once you're in that diet process, pretty much the next in line, or maybe the other way around, who you are next in line for, calls you. So all of a sudden, Chuyachaki was like,
okay,
we're next in line. It's up. And I'm like,
okay,
I'll be there. So now I pick up the phone right away, and I'm like, okay, I'm coming. Because we are that level now, so that also I would not miss any opportunity and any meeting with any of those spirits when they actually call you and say, like, it's time. you show up because it's such an opportunity. And so Chuyachaki is dieted for several reasons. Again, as a curandero, you diet Chuyachaki because he's Noirao is the queen and the president of the jungle. Chuyachaki is the guardian. So he's this ancient rooted. It's a tree with a lot of like those mangrove trees, you know, that have like roots going higher up, and then it goes down into the earth. So he has these like many roots. So he's really connected and rooted deep into the jungle soil, into the jungle vibration. And from there, he brings out that whole strength and brings it up and into the light. And he has these very strong protective powers. So you would diet this tree for two reasons. You would diet this tree for everything that needs grounding, lower chakra, showing up, self-esteem, strength, masculinity, clarity, growing up out of the little boy, growing out of the adolescent, tyrannic little, nah, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. No, show up, do this. Yes, I do this. I stop doubting about it. And it brings, he really feels like the dad you always wanted to have, with all the perfect qualities, but which of course a dad not has, because he has grown up in his environment and in his shortcomings and in his uncompleted growth of any earlier stages and, you know, early life traumatic. And a tree doesn't have that. So the divine masculine embodied in a tree is the divine masculine. There is no playing around. He's just that. And that presence. So as I said earlier, when a tree comes and you feel all of a sudden, like through the diet, all of a sudden you feel a tree taking place in you, that's when you start seeing those patterns and habits starting to be lifted. And again, you would see that in certain ways of thinking, or the way you think about your father, or the way you start thinking about yourself. Or, you know, I would come out of ceremony because, you know, several times a week there is ayahuasca ceremony during the dieta, in which you also visually see, because again, you're having those goggles on, so you meet the plant not only as in a physical way, or like in a sense, like in an emotional or sensitive physical way. You also see them face to face visually within the spirit realm. And then you see that, for example, Chuyachaki is an enormous old ancient spirit with, like, you know, super strong, and like, you know, somewhere between, you know, like the strength of a gorilla and the old eyes of a turtle, and at the same time just this like really muddy strong presence of like, and you go like, hello Chuyachaki, because you right away know, because you know it's him, right? Yeah. Like it's like when you would die at Noirao, all of a sudden you see this divine goddess, pure goddess light, and you're like, hello Noirao, because you just feel it cannot be anything else. It's just that the consciousness of that plant is so strong sorry, that it's self-evident. You know, self-evident. There you go. And so Chuyachaki, so yeah, so for example, and ceremonies can be very strong. Also, the medicine of Maestro is very, very strong ayahuasca. It's like boiled down, fully infused with all his power, so it just blasts you away. And it just blasts the whole contracted body-mind complex. It just blasts in pieces. And, you know, you cannot not then other than fall apart, right? So you have these ceremonies where you come out like pretty shook or pretty cleansed or pretty strong or pretty confident.
Mhm.
But then, yeah, like for example, I remember like being on my dieta with Chaki, I would start going like, strip my clothes and go naked back to my tambo and just like, walk as I own the jungle.
Like a gorilla.
Yeah, like I'm owning the jungle. So I just walk to my hut and then like, and you start to be like, starting to have this like, thing, like, like, oh, maybe I should take a shit. You know what? I'm going to bathe. Should I bathe? Yeah, I'm going to bathe. And I'm just going to, and then you go to the river and you go with you go naked. And you're just badass. You become like full badass, full of self-confidence, jungle badass, and then you walk to the river and you bathe and you're like even afraid of anything or any whatever sound, every creature you hear, you just say, yeah, you hear it, but you not go like, maybe this is it, or maybe it's that. No, you just stay in that confidence, and then you walk back to your hut and then you smoke your pipe and then you sit like a ronin, like a Japanese warrior, like, you have this kind of like, this very strong. And also like, yeah, I remember also in my case, like my root chakra just like popped open, like, and open up that whole lower dimension of groundedness. And also like, yeah, you don't become like a macho, some kind of like, guy who wants to show off. You just become like very confident in divine masculine energy and what that means and how it presents itself in nature, in the jungle, but also as a human being, and within the human experience.
Yeah, and how have you felt yourself different, and transformed, particularly by this dieta with Chilachaki, in terms of your masculinity, or for more authentically embodying an integrated masculinity? You feel
yeah, the thing is like,
something carried forward with
absolutely.
you.
Absolutely. And it shows in very various subtle and less like and more obvious ways, but like it is all that confidence and trust and things fall away, like procrastination, or you want to do something and before you had that little voice where they would say, yeah, but if I'm maybe not good enough, daddy will come and punish me. You just pop that away. So you just do it because there's no more daddy coming to you and punish you. So that cycle, that little
little whirlpool that would take you away.
Yeah, exactly. That little sticky, that little sticky pattern just it has been outgrown. Basically, you outgrow the limitations, and there's also when you actually understand how many limitations you had, because before you were not conscious of it, because they were just unconsciously happening, and you would not talk to that person, or not go up to this woman, or not make this decision, or not stand for this opinion, and it doesn't have to be so much in like a forceful way, like like, I'm doing it. No, you just do. Just stand in that opinion, and it's not
from
like
from a very relaxed ground.
Yeah, you don't have to like overcome the thing to be standing in that position, and then in standing in that position and then shivering. Okay, maybe let's hope that nobody can push me out of it. That's gone. Like also that anybody that come and push you out of it is not even a vibration anymore, because in general that is your dad would have come and push you or punish you or say, no, you don't do it this way, do it this way. And so that is outgrown. And also, for example, in my personal experience, also my whole relationship with my father has changed completely. And I also feel how he has changed towards me, because he also feels that
you're not animating that pattern anymore.
Yeah, and also that he also feels that maturity, which he can relax, and he doesn't have to be the dad who knows it all, but he also learns from me now, or he just yeah, we have just a different type of conversation.
And
Also,
what about any relationship to women? Have you
it's the
noticed
same.
a shift there?
Yeah, of course, because also women feel that, you know, that trust they can have. They feel that you're not maybe attracted to them because you're angry with your mom or you're angry with your dad, and you want to kind of, you know, work that out through them. Or that you're just like way more rooted within yourself, and they have, you know, they feel automatically attracted to that energy, because then they can unfold way more open in the way they're in their femininity, and not being like, oh, if I say this, maybe he'll, you know, he'll be offended, or if I do this, he might be offended, or I might maybe, you know, touch his, you know, boyhood wound, or, you know. So all these things actually more or less automatically just fall away. And so I mean, then also, of course, it depends on what woman you meet, because I mean, she also can have a daddy issue, and that, you know,
Of course, yeah.
so so, you know, so it's of course also interesting, of course, to be around women who do that work as well.
Yeah.
So that it really grows into something very beautiful. And because of course, I mean, yeah, of course, the stronger you also are in your masculine trust, you know, I mean, of course, you attract women who are looking for that, but of course, you also attract women who, you know, have daddy issues and see you as the savior, you know.
Right,
And,
of course, yeah.
yeah, you know, so, but yeah, so it is a very.
But of course, you'll be cutting through all that with your laser-like Shiva clarity now.
Exactly. You see, I take my pipe and I heal her, like, you know, because that's the work of the curandero. Then after, you know, eventually, you know, is that you know, you start healing people with those energies and those knowledges, and yeah, and then the same, you know, but you know, you're asking this about men and a man's tree, but it is as much as important for men also to diet feminine trees, like for example Marusa or Bobinsana, because there's also the mom side that needs to be healed, and you know, the attachments and pains and that, you know, that are related to that. Because otherwise you might have bypassing, or a guy who's only interested in, you know, in the masculine part, but one doesn't go without the other. And I really realized that, because I really realized that, for example, you know, the things like when you start dieting, and especially when you diet a tree like Noya Rao, she's just so I love her so much, you know, she's just like so beautiful, that people like, oh, you know what, I'm only going to diet Noya Rao, I'm not going to diet any other plants. And that's actually another, you know, that's so limiting, because yes, she is, you know, she's such a goddess, you know. But in order to be at her level and show up at her level, you have to be a god, right? So you have to, you know, you have to work those childish things. You have to work them out, and as much as on a feminine side, as much on the masculine side, and that's why it's so important to also diet all those other trees, and especially, I mean, you can diet them for specific ailments, and you know, I mean, I've seen people who've just found out that their father has been abusing them their whole childhood and selling their bodies to their friends, to his friends, and like, you know, and it's incredible how those plants can heal those structures and those deceptions and those, you know, realizations to that truth. And so, you know, who have I been my whole life, and you know, living with that trauma and not really knowing it, and everything falls apart. The whole family structure falls apart, and like, oh, how do I have to explain this to my mom now, or to my sister, and oh my God, my dad, never want to see him again. And so this whole thing, so, and it's spectacular. It's spectacular. It's also not only spectacular that it's revealed.
You're playing with fire. Yeah, it's
yeah, and it was
Big
spectacular that
implications.
yeah, and that the Curandero also can see that, right? So, for example, the Curandero, he recently in the Triachaki theater, there was this woman, and I mean, I heard of other people having that same revelation, but there I was live with it. So she came up to me and she's like, Niels, I'm having this really struggle with this, with this dieta, because she was dieting, but like I have this really big trauma that I kind of bypassing, and I know I have to go in it, but I don't know if I'm ready now, and I actually don't really sure if that's what I think it is. And she's like, can you help me translate with Maestro? And because I wanted to hear it from him, exactly what is wrong, what is his thing, what is this trauma? Can you, I mean, I have an idea, but I want to hear it from him. And because in general, the curanderos, I don't really want to talk about it so much. I just want to heal it.
Yeah.
So if you insist, yeah, they will tell. And so this, and so yeah, we went to see him, and that's when he told her, like, yeah, well, exactly between that age and that age, that many times, this and this happened. And because he has seen the whole thing, and that with everybody who was in the room, he sees the film of everybody's lives and knows exactly how to interact on that. And she was like, and so he told, yeah, so she had, you have been, yeah, your dad abused and his friends, and until that age. And she was like, yeah, but it's not possible, because like when I was 13 to 15, because he was like, yeah, I was going on to you until you were 15. And she was like, no, because I don't remember. Like 13 to 15, I know that he was, he was not with my mom anymore. He was living in his other house with his other girlfriend, and I would go visit him with my sister. And why don't I remember? Because like, yeah, because he sedated you, and on this way, and that's what happened. And it is fascinating that those curanderos through the ayahuasca medium, can diagnose so deeply.
Incredible.
And it's incredible. And then
psychic surgery.
Yeah, and then call in the right plants, spirits, energies to specifically heal and purge out that blocked energy, which is then called bad spirit or dark entity, to remove that. The memory of the situation that happened, of course, will remain, but you will not suffer in your life from it anymore, and you will regain again a complete, or at least a happy life as a human being. And it's beautiful to see the transformation of people sometimes when they come in. You feel that they're a bit like, also when they're in the Maloka, because we all sing, and sometimes when people are singing, you just see the filth, the things that we have been through, the abuse and the pain and the depression, and you just see it in the room, and you're like, you just, you sit there with you smoke your pipe, not to get anything, but you just like look at it and you go like, wow. And then over time, you see during the time of the dieta, you see these people like clearing up, blooming up. That dark energy has been pulled out and, being replaced by light, by grace, by its healthy opposite. And you just see these people just blooming up without one single chemical treatment, just by using the light of life in its different facets, in its different manifestations, and being able to guide that as a human being through the alliances you have with those energies, and have that work done, and having this a person that was fully black inside, completely luminous.
Beautiful. Wow. Well, we have to. Fantastic to speak with you about all this, Niels. I have to wrap it up now because of the time. But yeah, it's really interesting, and I can really feel how through listening to you, how this vision of Yoga Rao, bringing this potential of the plant medicines together with a profound commitment to spiritual awakening and purification, that's quite a concoction there.
Yeah, I fully believe, and it's also something that has been, it's a task has been given to me. Like, so I'm just, doing what I'm told. And
Like you're incubating it.
yeah, and in 2
Whatever
weeks I'm
wants to
going
be
back.
born.
Yeah, and in 2 weeks I'm going back into the jungle for 3 months. I'm going to do a 3 months dieta, and work with Noya Rao on further on the project, because she is my spiritual creative partner, goddess, wife, in this project, and in this, you know, and she's teaching me how to, you know, give birth to that, and hopefully we'll see proper retreats coming up, maybe later this year or next year, about our retreats, in which everything is like, you know, precisely interwoven with particular treatments and practices.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to hearing about that. I might even come over and join you one day.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
As you know, I'm very tempted.
Yeah, it would be so awesome to see you. You would love it.
So thanks very much, Niels, and I'll put all the information about your website in the description. And,
yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, lots of love to you, man. Till next time.
Cool.